God gave you your desires: hunger, thirst, sex, sleep, rest. These are not evil. But when sin takes them and corrupts them and distorts them, they become anti-God. They become Judas.
What role do our desires play in the battle within our mortal bodies? In this episode of Light and Truth, John Piper turns to Romans 6:11-14 to reveal how sin seeks to gain control of our desires in its war against us. This sermon was originally preached at Bethlehem Baptist Church on November 5th, 2000.
One of the greatest privileges of my life is to be able to spend so much time dealing in the greatest realities in the universe that I find in the Bible. I am privileged to be commissioned to study and to pray and to figure things out and to commune with God over His Word, and then to try to think through how to say things that I find there. That's an awesome privilege. I do live in the real world. I live in the same world you do. I have to brush my teeth, and I have to put storm windows down and put towels under freezers when they leak and figure out why the car's not working. I live in that world. But God has, in His wonderful, kind providence, granted me to have a calling where the greatest things in the world are my bread and butter. And you don't have to be a pastor to enjoy that. You don't have to be a pastor in order to set your mind on things that are above and not on things that are on the earth. To be caught up into great things and glorious things and magnificent realities. You can do just what I did yesterday. So yesterday, Noelle is coming home after being away for 3 weeks, taking care of her sister's children in Illinois so that her sister could do a mission trip. So my wife is coming home after 3 weeks with our little girl, and I'm on my way to the airport at 10 o'clock down Hiawatha. The radio is on by default, NPR News, and it hits me. Somebody must have been praying. It hits me. God is so good to me. We've all been safe. We've all been healthy. She's on her way home. I think I should turn the radio off and just commune with God here for a little bit. So I turned the radio off, and I said out loud, by memory, "Then I saw the new heavens and the new earth. For the first heavens and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared like a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a voice, a great voice from the throne saying, 'Behold, the dwelling of God is with men, and He will be with them. And they will be His people, and God Himself will be among them. And He will wipe away every tear from their faces, and death will be no more. Neither will there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away.' And He who sat upon the throne said, 'Behold, I make all things new.'" And as I'm driving, I'm seeing everything in relation to this great and glorious coming reality. The grass is going to be new. The grain elevators are going to be new. McDonald's, Burger King, the construction equipment at the new tunnel, it's all going to be new. And I'm just basking in the brevity of this world, the surety of the age to come, the glory of God being here, all my tears, all my frustrations, all my disappointments, all my depressions, and all my aches gone forever, and everything made new in a new heaven and a new earth that will put this one into the shadow. And I get there to the airport and I park and walk in and I head down Concourse E to gate number 10. I'm not in a stupor. I'm alive. I see things. I see the casino ad. And there is no inclination to want to get rich in this world. I see short skirts and provocative dress. And there is no desire to fantasize or lust. I smell the cinnamon and the sweet rolls. And I see those little frozen yogurt cups full of brown chocolate frozen yogurt. And there is no bondage to appetite. Everything belongs to God. Everything is in its place. Some good, some bad. And everything has to do with this great and glorious reality that's going to put all that into the shadow someday. And I thought about these people. Forget it. And I thought, most of these people are in a dream world. They really think that cinnamon rolls and frozen yogurt and casino winnings and short skirts are where it's at. I got home with Noelle and Talitha, and we had lunch together and showed me some pictures. I put Talitha to bed, and I went in to look at this text that John just read to you. And I looked at it and I thought, look at this. Just look at this text. This is incredible. Everything's here. The great things are here. Let's list them off for you. Starting at verse 12. Death, sin, life, God, Christ, mortal bodies, desires, law, grace. These massive realities. These are the big things in life. These are the huge issues. We're going to spend 2 weeks on this text. It is so dense with reality. Where we live and where God intersects with where we live. The reason we're going to spend 2 weeks on it, today and next Sunday, is because as I pondered it, I saw two things that need to be done, and I didn't think I could do them both on one Sunday. The first one is to describe the battlefield in this text and the participants in the battle and what's at stake in the battle. There's a battle going on in verses 11 to 14 of Romans 6. And the second thing I want to do is describe the way to win it. How do you fight it to win? And that's a separate thing. We need to understand it first. What's the nature of the battle? And my guess is that if we understand the nature of the battle and what's at stake in it and who the participants are, then we'll be well on our way to the victory. So here's what I see. I see 8 things, and I'll mention them. Boom, 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 boom. And I want you to see them with me in the text as the description of the battlefield or the conflict. Number 1, There is a kingly throne here, or a reign. Verse 12, do not let sin reign. So there's a reign being contested here. Resist. Don't let sin have this throne. There's a throne. There's a reign. Number 2, there's a challenger to the throne. There's a revolutionary, an insurrectionist, a rebel trying to take over the throne. Its name is sin. Do not let sin reign. Verse 12. So he's in revolt. He's in mutiny. He intends to lead a coup and gain control of the throne. And Paul says, no, don't let him. Number 3, there is a castle under attack, and it is your body. Do not let sin reign in your mortal body. Your body matters. And sin, this pretender to the throne, would reign in your body. Number 4, there are servants in the castle. They may be taken captive and made into secret agents behind the castle walls to seduce and capture parts of the castle. These are called desires. Do not let sin reign in your mortal body so that you obey its desires. Now the word is neutral. I know the translations all say lusts or evil desires. The word is simply neutral. It's the same word used for Paul's desire to go and be with Christ. His desire to go to the Philippians. It's a neutral word. There are neutral servants in your life called desires. They're neither bad nor good, but can be taken captive by sin or put into the use of righteousness. 5th, there is incremental surrender possible. That's what I get from the word obey. Do not let sin reign in your mortal body to obey its desires. If sin, the leader of this revolt, takes captive some of your servant desires and corrupts them and sends them back into the castle where they belong, and they yield, take captive a part of the castle, there is an incremental surrender. These desires will promise immunity if you capitulate, and reward, and they lie. They're deceitful. Number 6, there are weapons in the castle that may be taken captive and turned around and used against the throne for unrighteous purposes. The reference here is to the parts of your body: eyes, ears, tongue, hands, feet, sexual organs. Verse 13. Do not go on presenting your members, that is the parts of your body, to sin as weapons of unrighteousness. Now I know your version says instruments. This word is used 4 other times in the New Testament. 1 in the ministry of Jesus, 3 in the Apostle Paul. It is always translated weapons. It means weapons. And the reason I think that's important is because the whole imagery I'm developing here is at least partly in Paul's mind. You got a throne, you got a contender for the throne, sin, you got weapons of defense or complicity. This is not just instruments here. These are weapons in the wall of the castle intended to do battle for justice and righteousness, which sin seditiously takes captive of by coming in, duping the servants called desires, the desires becoming corrupt, take a part of your body and turn it around and blow the place up if you're not rescued. Seventh, there is a true king over the realm, and he is God. Verse 13 again. Do not surrender your members to sin, the rebel contender for the throne, so he can make weapons of unrighteousness out of your body parts. But what? Present yourselves to God as those alive from the dead, and your members as weapons of righteousness to God. He's on the throne. Sin is contending for this throne. He wants to reign because he doesn't like God's reign. So this is calling you to be loyal to your king. Be loyal to your king. This is talking to believers. That's, I hope, clear. This is not talking to unbelievers. This is how believers are to deal with sin and their own bodies. Finally, number 8. There is a constitutional authority in this kingdom, in this castle, and it is grace, not law. Verse 14. For sin shall not be master over you, for you are not under the constitutional authority of law. You are under the constitutional authority of grace. We'll talk about that next week as how that works. Let me give you 3 comments on these 8 elements of the battlefield and the warfare to show you how they work together. Number 1, God is our king. The castle belongs to God. Every other contender is an alien. Give your body to God. Number 2, sin is a power and not just an act. So many people think that sin is like stealing or killing or lying. And of course, that is sin. But that's not the main problem. If that were the main problem, willpower could save us. The main problem is that sin is a power. And it takes captive desires and turns them into seditious servants that brings parts of the body under control and makes them instruments or weapons of unrighteousness. Third observation, last one. The desires of the body are not sin, but they may become sin. They can be captured by the power of sin and distorted and corrupted. Look at verse 12. Do not let sin reign in your mortal body so that you obey its. Now that its there refers to the body, not sin. You can see that in Greek. You can't see it in English because it agrees in gender with the noun body and not sin. So, don't let sin reign in your mortal body so that you obey the body's desires. So something happened to these desires. God gave you your desires: hunger, thirst, sex, sleep, rest. These are not evil. But when sin takes them and corrupts them and distorts them, they become anti-God. They become Judas. I thought of Judas. He's on the inner ring. Judas, one of the disciples. And it says, Satan entered into him. It's like here. Sin wants to reign in your mortal bodies. And it takes an innocent, good desire captive and makes it a Judas desire. A betrayal desire. So now, when you follow that desire, you sin against Christ. I thought of Samson and Delilah as another picture of it. Samson. It is perfectly legitimate for Samson to satisfy the desires of his wife, Delilah, while Delilah is a faithful wife. But if Delilah becomes a partner with the enemy, then to satisfy her desires will destroy everything. And it did. Delilah desires. Judas desires. See where the battle has to be fought here? Sin, this power, taking captive. Just take a couple of examples. The desire for food. It's a good servant. But when sin takes it, what do we get? Gluttony, bulimia, anorexia, death. Desire for drink. That's a good desire. When sin takes it, what do we get? Alcoholism, bondage to caffeine. The Apostle Paul said, I will not be enslaved by anything. The desire for sexual satisfaction. It's a good desire. It has served the human race well in the service of procreation and marital joy. And when sin takes it, turns that good servant into a seditious, behind the walls, complicitous servant of the enemy, what do we get? Lust for pornography, lust for masturbation, lust for fornication, lust for adultery, lust for homosexual activity, and the good servant becomes a turncoat and a Judas desire and kills us. Or the desire for rest and sleep. Are you tired this morning? That's okay. That's as innocent as the day is long. God put the desire for sleep and the need for sleep into us. And what happens if sin comes in there? Takes captive that love of rest and sleep. It rises, and what do we get? Sloth. Laziness. Can you make those distinctions? You see the difference between the way God designed us ultimately to be and what this power sin does? So next week, how do you fight? How do you fight? And oh, how wrong it would be. Wouldn't it be wrong to say, well, the real issue here is those members of our bodies doing acts of unrighteousness like lying and stealing and whatever else. And I'd say, no. That is not where the battle's going to be fought. Beneath actions there are desires. And beneath desires, there's the power of sin. And beneath the power of sin, there's union with Jesus Christ. And beneath union with Jesus Christ, there is the historic work of Christ on the cross, where He did something once for all for us, and we experience something in Him. And if you don't build from there up, you will either be one colossal lecher or one colossal legalist. You will not succeed in the battle if you fight at the level of action or even the level of desire. So come next week and we'll talk about how do you fight this thing? Where do you go? How do you think? What do you do? How do you feel in order to win this battle against the contender against the throne? And I just have one last question for you as you go. Who is your King? This afternoon when you leave here, who will reign in your life? And I just plead with you, don't head down the e-concourse of Sunday afternoon and think cinnamon bonbons, frozen yogurt, some good winnings at the casino, and a nice short skirt is where it's at. It's not where it's at. Don't marvel at your little troughs that you've dug or anybody has dug. Get up, turn around, look at the Grand Canyon of God, of the cross, of this table. Stand by the table this afternoon and marvel at what that bread and what that cup means. Christ died so that He might purchase the presence of God in your life as a glorious, enjoyed Grand Canyon and not a judge.
This is Light and Truth, God-centered preaching to help you see Christ clearly and treasure Him truly. I'm your host, Dan Kruver. Thank you for listening. On our next episode, John Piper continues our 12-part series, The Sanctified Life, with a sermon titled, Doing Battle with Sin. I hope you'll join us. For more resources, visit desiringgod.org.